The Abuja School of Social and Political Thought is urging the Independent National Electoral Commission to enforce internal democracy in political parties ahead of the 2023 elections. Stakeholders are calling for a credible electoral process, voter education, and internal democracy of political parties. They are calling on the Independent National Electoral Commission to ensure the use of its statutory mandate by compelling political parties to abide by the rules to strengthen the electoral process. Now, the panel thinks that if consensus is not applied as prescribed by the Electoral Act, the masses will have little or no say in choosing who governs them. But against the backdrop of the cause, the Independent National Electoral Commission says political parties cannot push it into altering the schedule of its activities, which it released in February on the account of their poor preparation.
So the choice of leaders in the party is very important for the quality of choice of leaders in the bigger context. That's really why we consider internal democracy in the party the very first issue we're going to deal with in these roundtables.
A mass in the primary process of a party. And the political parties, apart from being institutions for recruitment of leadership, are the most important electors in any democracy because they present to the country choices that you must select from. And the only thing that you can do if you do not agree with the choices that will come from the primaries of the parties is to withdraw from participating in the electoral process.
Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by Gbolahan Olojede, who is a public affairs analyst. He joins me from our Lagos studio. And Gbolahan, let's talk about the call by the political parties to on INEC to extend the timetable for primaries. I mean, how could the political parties, after so many months, be calling for more time?
Well, it's the usual thing, probably maybe even a Nigerian problem, to start looking for extension of deadlines. If you say, go and do your NIN, we'll look for extension. Go and do voters registration, we'll look for extension. So it has become a habit. But because of the tight schedule, don't forget that we can always walk back from the 26th of February, which is when the presidential election is supposed to hold, and what the law says. The law says 180 days before then, all the candidates should have been ready. So if you walk back, that is August. That leads us to August, which means the selection of candidates for each of the parties and the subsequent resolution of a few issues that will emanate from that process should have been concluded before that time. So granting all this extension will not necessarily lead to an improved process. Whatever the parties need to do can be done right now and done within the time frame that is provided within the law.
Some of the political parties actually said that because of the Muslim festival of Ramadan and then the Muslim fasting, that they had to adjust, they had to move everything from April way up until May. Well, INEC is saying that they just have to play by the rule book. Now, let's talk about politics in Nigeria and the issues of inclusivity. You see a lot of political parties not wanting to follow the process very well. You see people saying that there are plans to impose candidates on others, and then you hear that presidential aspirants are going around and sharing money to influence delegates. What do you make of all of these things that have been happening as we head into the primaries?
When I read some document from the Library of Congress, and in those documents, it appears as if Nigeria might be in the 1912 equivalent of the American democracy evolution. In that season, in the American politics, you have the state party bosses, as they were called, were more or less the owners of the parties. They determine who becomes the president. And when you look at our scenario, you see that the governors have been very strong in determining who becomes the president in Nigeria. We can see that also playing out even currently with however you look at it, whether the president signs the amendment or he doesn't sign it, you can still see the leverage that the governors hold. If you say, okay, take APC, three delegates from each local government. If there's going to be 3 delegates from each local government, who will have the strongest influence on who becomes those 3 delegates? It will be the governors. Look across Nigeria. You will see that literally in all the states of the federation, the ruling party in the state determines the local government chairman in the state. In fact, in most of the situations, 100% of local government chairmen are from the party of that governor. So if that state is going to produce 3 delegates, where would they be from? In whose interest would they be? So delegates in Nigeria are largely owned. And that is the 1912 stage of American democracy evolution. We need to be deliberate about what we can do to have a more representative delegate that are not owned. As it is today, whoever those owners say they should vote for is who they are going to vote for. That is how it works currently. So in our lawmaking, in our democratic evolution, we must be deliberate about moving away from that, ensuring that we can have a delegate that are a little bit representative and a bit independent. You're not going to be 100% independent, but a little bit more representative of the people, so that when they vote, we will have some credibility to the vote.
Now, having known the powers of delegates, and then with some people saying that the exclusion of the statutory delegates is like a blessing to the political system, because some of those statutory delegates, I mean, governors, local government chairmen, House of Rep members, senators, used to have an overwhelming influence over the democratically elected ad hoc delegates. Now, since it's only the ad hoc delegates, now that it looks like going there, they may exercise much discretion this time around, having come from localities where insecurity is bothering them, where the economy is hard and all of that, and go around to present the best candidates for Nigerians to elect next year. What would be your appeal personally to some of these delegates as they find and enjoy their newfound powers?
I hope that the delegates were on the right side of history, and that they will vote their conscience to ensure that Nigeria can have the best candidate, that the parties can produce the best candidate. Because exclusion starts from that level where Nigerians do not think that the candidate that have emerged from the parties are the candidate they would like to vote for. Once you produce the wrong candidate, you're already excluding people. Some people lose interest automatically at that point, and I don't want to have anything to do with voting or not. So that is why it is important that the delegates will live up to the expectation of Nigerians and be able to vote their conviction. The statutory delegates, as the case may be, they are overwhelming, no doubt about that. They will actually make the process much more expensive, because you now have to start reaching out to all these 1,001 people, plenty of them over the place. You have the councillors, the local government chairmen, the governors, the members of houses of assemblies and national assemblies. And, oh, no, it's a whole lot of people that we're talking about. Where we borrowed this democracy from, they also have this so-called superdelegates in the Democratic Party. Let's use the Democratic Party in the US as an example. They have the superdelegates. But you see, the superdelegates only come in at what they call the second ballot. So the primary people that will choose, and the people with the higher number, is actually the normal delegate, not the superdelegate. So the superdelegate should be the equivalent of our own statutory delegate, and their role should be, I would say, secondary. It is those primary delegates that should do the election. If there are now issues, maybe there is a need for a second ballot, then we can call in the superdelegate to come and break the tie. But what we have now in our situation is an interesting dimension, because the superdelegate or the statutory delegate may be a lot more than the elected delegates.
Well, that's why the ad hoc delegates are called the electors, actually, in the system you're referring to. But now let's talk about some of the presidential aspirants in both the APC, PDP, ADC, and all the other political parties that have been going around. Have you found the next Nigerian president among them, and how do you think he can easily emerge?
It's interesting. I think there will be 2 or 3 that have been of appeal to me as an individual. And I think they can get the job done based on some antecedents. But don't forget that there is a first hurdle before they come to me as a citizen or a voter. I'm not a party man. And that first hurdle is being able to cross from being an aspirant of their party to becoming a candidate of that party. Until they do that, I, as a voter, as a citizen, I'm on the helpless side, you know. So, and which is the more reason why we need to continue to improve that process that will produce who becomes the candidate of the political parties in Nigeria. So I'm just hoping that out of the people that I think can get the job done, that it will be 1 or 2 of them that will emerge from those parties, so that it makes it easier for us to make a choice.
And you wouldn't want to mention any name at the moment, or names at the moment for all the political parties? I mean, I'm not saying you should restrict it to the major ones. Okay, you don't wish to.
I would rather not mention it.
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
So as we try to round off the conversation, tell us how party members can be very helpful during this exercise in talking to delegates to exercise discretion, to take the right decision, and think of the future of this country as they go to exercise their voting franchise within the political structure of their party.
Well, I think what NGOs and the civil organizations are doing at this time is helping. I've also heard few jingles here and there speaking directly to these people. Some of the aspirants are also speaking in this direction, you know, urging the delegates to think about the future, think about their children, and vote the people with the right capacity that can deliver. Hopefully, the delegates will take a cue from this and not just do the usual pattern, but rather think about the future, which is their own future as well, and the future of their children, and help us to get the right candidate, the right aspirant to become the candidate of the parties.
And on the last note, we hear that these delegates are becoming richer by the moment. Some of them are rich in dollars, some of them are rich in naira here and there. What would you say to aspirants who actually go to influence delegates using monetary influence here and there?
Our politics is still a lot monetized. So that inducement is there. Incidentally, when I was reading the document I read from the Library of Congress in the US, it also spoke about a similar issue, how there were corruption, how delegates were being settled in court. That was in America, but then that was 1912, you know. So it's an evolution. I think even in Nigeria, if you look at our electoral process, think of 1999 through to 2007, 2019, we're not what we used to be. We may not be where we ought to be, but we're not where we used to be. We have moved. So it's a continuous thing. We have to continue to do it. There are certain rules, however, in the electoral process, in the electoral law, which has to do with financing. And I hope that the INEC and other agencies of government will be able, because there is no law that allows you to corrupt an individual to make a decision. So I'm only hoping that the necessary agency of government will have the required capacity to be able to track elements of corruption within the system and bring offenders to book. I know it's a tough call. It's a very tough call.
Thank you so much. Gbolahan Olojede is a public affairs analyst, and we must thank you for bringing those perspectives. I mean, for those politicians who are monetizing the electoral process, well, the institutions will have to deal with them. And I think that's why INEC is there, and there are new institutions even being created for the Electoral Offenses Commission and all of that. Well, we must thank you for joining us from Lagos to take a look at this issue. That's how it's been for this edition of the Arise interview. Do join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye and thank you for watching. I'm Samna Sambo.